Hello and welcome back. This is going to be garden chat in case you didn't see the YouTube description below. This is where I chat, ramble, or babble on about something other than you watching me garden. So today I want to talk about influencers. And I know that can be kind of a cringy word to YouTubers, but I'm not referring to or necessarily referring to somebody in or within the YouTube community, but I'm referring to people who may have influenced you or inspired you or motivated you or forced you to get into gardening. Who are those people in your life? Were they your grandparents, your parents, uncles, aunts? What did you start gardening? What did you start learning to garden? Did an aunt or an uncle perhaps teach you how to raise tomatoes, grow tomatoes? And that's what you do today, and that's what you've always done. You're very good at it, and you love growing tomatoes. I had a friend years ago whose grandfather came over from Italy, and he taught my friend how to grow tomatoes. Now, unfortunately, my friend didn't take much interest in it. He didn't take much interest in it. But he did, often on Sundays, sit in the backyard with his grandfather as his grandfather went on and on and on about how to grow the perfect tomato, and help my grandfather pick those tomatoes so that his grandmother could then cook up tomato sauce. So maybe it was a grandparent, maybe it was an aunt and uncle. I unfortunately didn't have that experience. My grandparents were not into gardening per se. They would occasionally plant a bush. They bought for their house Lily of the Valley, which is an excellent ground cover and has a wonderful smell in the springtime. And that was about the extent of it. My mother was the same way, not really a gardener. So, my father, he just wanted me to weed the very small flower bed that didn't have flowers, only cactuses in it. In Florida, so that wasn't really a fun, enjoyable experience. But here we are, years later. For me, probably the biggest influence or the person who inspired me the most is the English gardener Monty Don. He reminds me very much of the American painter Bob Ross. So Bob Ross inspired many people back in the day to turn around and take a paintbrush, just smash it into a canvas, and somehow that would make beautiful artwork. And often it did when he did it, not when many of us did it. Mr. Monty Don there inspired me to at least research and want to explore gardening. Can I garden? Can I get into this gardening thing? What does it mean to be a gardener? What does it mean to take care of a garden? How much is involved? So that was probably the main person. That being said, there are still many more who I look at and they inspire me or motivate me to want to try or do different things within gardening. So some of those people, so let's start with the top YouTuber, or at least the one person who seems to have the largest following on YouTube, at least in gardening that I know of, is Laura from Garden Answers. Her and her husband own a 4-acre, I believe, plot of land in Oregon. She gardens pretty much all of it. Everything from shade plants to flowers to, I think she's got a vegetable garden that's like 12 beds, and it's big. It's a lot. She recently admitted that she started getting help in the garden because there's so much going on. Her and her husband basically take care of the whole thing, and it's a fairly interesting channel. So if you haven't heard Garden Answers, go check it out. Watching her and her positive, motivating, "Yay, let's do this" thing, yeah. And sometimes she brings up a plant or does something that I look at and I go, well, can I do that here in my crappy little suburban garden, or should I try doing that, or will those plants thrive in my zone? House Nursery. I'm going to call it House Nursery. How, if I'm mispronouncing your name, I do apologize. He's a gentleman from Wales. Him and his family have a little homestead, and he has a fairly extensive vegetable growing area, vegetable thing bed there. It's just interesting to watch him sort of do things on a very low budget scale, yet very motivated and inspiring in his own right. That he's a young guy and he's been doing it for a while, and he just shows you how you can do it. You can do it on a budget. You don't need anything super fancy, just the right knowledge, as it were. So that's Howe's Nursery, so which is pretty cool. The next two, I'm going to put these two together because they're both homesteaders, and though I'm not a homesteader, they both do gardening, vegetable gardening on their own. Some flowers, but mostly vegetables, maybe some fruits too. Forgive my ignorance, but Living Traditions Homestead and Roots and Refuge. They're both interesting couples. Gonna have to edit the hell out of this. Grow vegetables on their land for various reasons. Feed themselves, also to sell sometimes at market. And it's interesting to see their takes on it, on what they're growing, when they're growing, how they're growing, and how they're treating the food that they grow. Whether it's canning or something else that I don't understand, that I'm learning or trying to learn from watching their channel. Alright, the next one I'm going to do or mention is a gentleman over in England. Again, back over to the other side of the pond, as they call it. The Small Garden Channel. I don't know the gentleman's name, or I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's a Small Garden Channel. Very interesting guy. He's an older gentleman. I believe he's a retired gardener. He has a very small backyard, and him and his well, I think it's just him that gardens the backyard. He grows flowers, dahlias, a bunch of other stuff. He really likes his dahlias. I like my dahlias. He likes them more. He grows dahlias. He grows all sorts of fruits, vegetables, I believe. And he does it again inexpensively. No real fancy contraptions. He makes his own compost. He's a very elderly gentleman, but it just shows that you can be a gardener and can garden at practically any age, which is inspiring to me as somebody who's just getting into gardening at an older age. Not that I'm that old, but at an older age. So yeah, if you're wondering why I keep looking down, look at my phone there. So getting those notes. The next two are for completely different reasons other than gardening. So the first gentleman I'm going to mention is Chris Sale. Chris Sale is a YouTuber over in England, and he lives in the Lake District, wherever that is. I'm not sure, but again, I'll put links below, and you can go check him out. But Mr. Sale there just recently left his 9-to-5 IT job and started doing landscape photography full-time. Now, he had a YouTube channel. He's had a YouTube channel for a while, and he's been doing landscape photography. It was a hobby, but then he decided to take it to that next level. And what I find interesting with him is his sort of daily journeys of how he's trying to monetize his hobby, doing the landscape photography, and what motivates him and his thought process of how things go on. If you haven't noticed, it's really windy outside, so that's why I'm shooting in the greenhouse, and if you get a lot of that wind noise, I do apologize. But just grin and bear it and just go, it's another awful video by Jay. So, and the last one is probably the most interesting character, I'm going to call him, and hopefully he takes no offense to that. But yeah, the next one is going to be Peter McKinnon. Now, Peter McKinnon is a full-time YouTuber. He's also a professional photographer, videographer. He lives up in Canada, and he, at least on camera, appears super energetic, really motivated, and pumped. He's had led an interesting life. I'll let him tell you that story through his channel, but his motivation. Or his motivational attitude, I enjoy. It's something that it is inspiring. In regards to him and gardening, well, he doesn't garden, but he does filmmaking. And what are we doing here? I'm talking to you right now through the magic of film, digital media, YouTube, whatever you want to call this thing here. So, and sorry, just putting my arm down someplace. So he's motivating in that aspect, and recently put out a video, and one of the things he mentioned was that if you're on YouTube, you should always be trying to improve your filmmaking. You may not be on YouTube to be a filmmaker, but because you're on YouTube, you are a filmmaker. So you may be a homesteader, you may be a gardener, you may be an electrician or an architect, a hacker, something. But you're making film, you're making video, you're doing this whole videography thing. So it was interesting to hear him say that you should be always looking to improve your game and do something more creative, more interesting. And that's one of the many things I want to try to do with this channel. And if you haven't noticed with this video, I keep changing angles to try to keep this boring video somewhat interesting. So there are a list of some of the people who have influenced, cringy word again, I think, as Mr. McKinnon would say, but inspired or motivated me in one aspect or another, whether it be gardening or making videos or doing YouTube. There is a long list of people out there. There's channels out there that I'm starting to watch now are inspiring or can be motivating. I'm just not going to go through a long list and yeah, it's just too much. So, and this video is probably already going to be too long. So who are the people who have motivated you? Who are the people who inspired you? Who are the people who either forced you or tempted you into gardening? Or maybe, you know, somebody who influences you or inspires you in YouTube. It doesn't have to be a gardener. Maybe it's somebody like Peter McKinnon or Chris Sale, or again, there's a long list of people out there who turn around and do this YouTube stuff, and maybe they've inspired you or motivated you to do a YouTube channel of your own, or to try something that is outside of your 9-to-5 or outside of your normal thing that you do, whatever it is that you do. So maybe it's a hobby. But yeah, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, this has been a nice one-sided chat, though I'd like to hear more from you. So please leave a comment below, like and subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get notified when I put out another yet awful video for you to watch. And that's about it. Bye-bye, sayonara, adios, bon voyage. See you later, and yeah.